At the furthest edge of the old quarter of Loch Tach, past the florist with cascading petals and the bakery whose morning breads leaked out a promise of warmth, there sat a peculiar shop, sunken slightly as if stooping under centuries of stories. The cobblestones gathered closely around it, sheltering it from the hurry and clamor of the world beyond. Its facade, faded to the gentle hue of honey tea, carried the soft memory of a yellow that once declared its presence more boldly. Now it needed no such declaration. It wore invisibility like a favorite coat. The sign above the door, a rectangle of wood seasoned dark by rain and time, leaned at an unpromising angle. The words upon it had been brushed on by a careful, trembling hand long ago, and now the ink had bled until it was nearly unreadable. But if you squinted, and if the sunlight angled just right between the clouds, you could decipher the phrase, "Time is gentle." Below this sign, instead of a bell, a wind chime. The color of brushed nickel swayed in every breath of wind, exhaling a sound that evoked old secrets. Not music exactly, but something softer, like the last sigh at the end of a day. For most of Loch Tach's residents, the shop was no more than a stitch in the town's patchwork, easily overlooked. Few remembered the last time they had seen its door swing wide or its windows open, and there were certainly no deliveries of packages or coffee or newspapers. It was easy to walk by without noticing it at all. But those who did notice, who paused even for a moment in front of its crooked window, found themselves wondering about the gentle confusion that seemed to hang about its entrance, as if the very air slowed there, thickening with memory and possibility. Inside that shop, time unfurled in unexpected ways. The moment you crossed the threshold, closing the door gently behind you, never with a slam, the world outside receded. There was no trace of the beeping traffic lights, no tick of impatient heels on pavement, no vibration of hurried phone messages. Instead, you were greeted by a scent that was both familiar and enigmatic. A tapestry of dry parchment, worn wool, stewed apples, and the faintest ghost of violets pressed between the pages of an old diary. It was not quite the scent of incense, nor just the aging of wood, but the blended fragrance of all the yesterdays that had soaked into the shop's bones. All around, from low-standing shelves and the wallpapered walls, clocks presented themselves. Not just clocks for practicality, but for the sheer love of time's craftsmanship. Towering grandfather clocks with pendulums moving like slow heartbeats. Delicate porcelain clocks shaped like birds or gardens. Pocket watches tucked into velvet-lined cases like secret treasures waiting to be discovered. Even a clock so tiny it might suit a mouse in a waistcoat, ticking away the minutes of a very slow afternoon. Yet there was a singular peculiarity. Every clock lagged just a little behind. Some by seconds, some by minutes, but none ever raced ahead. They waited patiently for the world to catch up. Behind the counters and among the shelves lived the shop's keeper, a figure both mysterious and familiar. Everyone in Loch Tach called him Mr. Slow, though perhaps once, long before the dusk of his hair and the velvet softness of his hands, he had been known by a finer name. But now, all agreed the name suited him. It was not a meanness, but an affectionate acknowledgement of the gentle drag with which he moved through the world. He wiped each clock face with such deliberation that you wondered if he was cleaning the glass or coaxing time itself back into its proper place. He sipped his tea so slowly that steam seemed to give up before he finished, curling away in amiable resignation. And when he spoke, his words leapt and lolled, punctuated by thoughtful silences in which he would simply smile or inhale the floral trail of his drink, an unhurried companion to his thoughts. For Mr. So there was never a hurry. If a patron came in out of the rain, rushed and dripping, heart still racing from the world outside, he would invite them to sit, gesturing not to the nearest seat but to the one with the softest cushion, offering a handkerchief or a cup of tea without a word about their drenched shoes or the clock that told them they were late. In his shop, lateness was not reprimandable. It was celebrated as proof that life had halted long enough to notice its own beauty. Many passers-by scoffed at the sight of those patient clocks, their hands lagging behind the digital pulses of the city. To them, a clock out of step was a clock in need of fixing, a symbol of forgetfulness or old age. If it can't keep time, what good is it? Some muttered, pressing their faces to the window. The old man must be losing his mind, others would say, not caring if their voices carried. But there were others, rare souls searching for more than efficiency, who found, within Mr. Tischlerslow's shop, a curious relief. They sat in the patched armchair by the window or traced a finger over the face of a ticking clock, watching as shadows lengthened across the rust-colored rug. With every passing minute, their rush faded. Breaths, once quick and shallow, slowed to an easy rhythm. In one shadowed corner, beside a vase of dried asters, a small sign hung on a nail. Its message was carved by hand, each letter patient and deliberate. Here there is no need to hurry. Every clock is listening. At first glance, it puzzled the hurried mind. What did it mean for a clock to listen? What use was a shop where time itself seemed to dawdle? The answer was not in any logic that ran on the outside streets. It was in the settled silence that gently pressed at your shoulders, freeing you from the tyranny of urgent measuring. Stay long enough, and even the most pragmatic visitor felt it. The clocks here did not tally your deadlines or push you toward the next task. Instead, they measured presence. Each tick was not a step away from the past or toward the future, but a testimony that you were, right now here, breathing, pausing, allowed to simply be. And always, with an uncanny kindness, Mr. Slow moved in exactly when needed. Whether by offering another cup of tea, winding a clock with a silver key, or simply sharing a smile that was more sunrise than politeness, he reminded each soul who wandered into his shop that time, gentle, unhurried, infinitely patient, was a companion, not a taskmaster. In time is gentle, the world outside could wait. Here, old clocks waited too, and as they listened, so could you. One slightly chilly afternoon, Nina and her mother made their way along the familiar stone-paved street of the town. The stones, worn smooth by countless footsteps, carried stories beneath each gentle clack of their shoes. Nina's curls danced in the playful wind, and her heart fluttered with the kind of anticipation only a child can feel, when every moment promises the possibility of a small adventure. They paused in front of a curious little shop called Gentle Time, its wooden sign creaking softly in the breeze. This place had always intrigued Nina, though she had only heard about it from whispered grown-up stories. Tales of clocks with memories, of timepieces that did strange and magical things. Today, her mother's hand on her shoulder, Nina finally stood at its threshold. The old wooden door groaned in welcome as Nina nudged it open. Inside, the air was suffused with the gentle aroma of aged timber and fragrant tea, a warm greeting that settled over her like a comforting shawl. The walls were lined with clocks of every size and character. Grandfather clocks with long, dignified faces, tiny brass pocket watches that ticked in secret corners, bright cuckoo clocks whose birds peeked out on the hour as if testing the air for a new season. Amidst it all stood Mr. Tam Cham. His silver hair billowed around his head like a gentle cloud, and his smile was as warm as the sun on a winter morning. He polished a pendulum clock, his hands moving with slow, deliberate care, as though he and the clock shared an old, silent language. His eyes, Nina noticed, sparkled with layers of kindness and mystery, the sort of eyes that seemed to hold the secrets of 100 years. "Hello, little girl," he said, his voice as soft as the ticking of a gentle clock. "Do you want to see a clock that not only counts time but also counts emotions?" Nina's eyes grew wide, shimmering with excitement, and she nodded eagerly. It was as if an invisible door had opened just for her, leading to a place of secrets and wonder. With a kindly gesture, Mr. Tam Cham guided her into a shadowy corner of the shop. There, sitting alone upon a polished walnut pedestal, was a clock unlike any Nina had ever seen. Instead of numbers, the face was painted with gentle strokes of watercolor, shades of blue fading into purple and then the inky black of the night. Two delicate hands, carved from wood as fine as an autumn leaf, swept across the surface. But at that moment they stood still, as if resting between beats of the world's great heart. "This," he explained, "is the numberless clock. It does not measure seconds or minutes as other clocks do. Instead, it measures the peaceful moments inside people's hearts." Nina stared at it intently. Without numbers or a ticking sound, it seemed more like a painting than a clock. Yet there was something strange and inviting about it, as if she stared long enough, She might fall into its swirling colors and dream for 1,000 years. How does it know the peaceful moments? She asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper, as if worried she might wake the slumbering timepiece. Mr. Tamcham smiled gently. It does not need eyes to see or ears to hear. The numberless clock listens to the way you breathe, to the rhythm of your heartbeat, and to the quietest emotions in your heart. When you slow down and truly listen to the world, when you let yourself feel calm and happy, the hands will begin to move. But if you are in a hurry or if you are anxious, the clock will wait. It will not tick forward until your heart finds peace again. Nina reached out, curiosity burning inside her, and placed her hands softly upon the painted face of the numberless clock. At first, nothing happened. The hands remained frozen, unmoved by her touch. The room was filled only with the faint scent of tea leaves and the far-off ticking of other, lesser clocks. She remembered Mr. Tamcham's words. Closing her eyes, Nina listened. She noticed the wind brushing up against the window pane, the hum of the kettle behind the counter, the distant, careful step of the shop's tabby cat as it wandered between shadow and sunlight. She took a deep breath, letting the icy air from outside tangle with the warmer air inside her chest. As she did so, she could feel herself relax, the restlessness in her chest quieting with every gentle inhale. When she opened her eyes, Nina saw the hands of the numberless clock begin to stir. They moved slowly, not with the steady march of an ordinary clock, but with the lazy grace of a leaf drifting down toward the earth on a windless autumn morning. In that gentle motion, Nina felt an answer she hadn't known she was searching for. She laughed, a sound light as bells. The clock knows. It really knows when you are truly listening. Her heart felt light, as if she had been given a secret too precious to keep. Mr. Temcham looked at her with great affection, his voice warm and gentle. Do you know, if you carry that peaceful feeling with you all day, your whole world slows down. Even the busiest moments feel a little softer, a little easier to hold. The world will open its arms to you, and there will always be time enough. Nina nodded, a new understanding settling in her heart. For the first time, she realized that time was not always racing. Sometimes, in the quiet pauses between, life stretched and softened, and magical things could be felt instead of measured. That afternoon, Nina and her mother left the shop with hands entwined and hearts unhurried. The numberless clock remained in its shadowy corner, its hands moving in languid arcs, a silent companion to anyone who cared to listen. But within Nina, a different sort of clock had been set in motion, one that measured not by seconds or minutes, but by cherished moments and peaceful breaths. For her, every day would hold the magic of time well listened to and well lived. After her first mysterious and enchanting encounter with Mr. Tamcham and the magical clock without numbers, something wonderful began to awaken within Nina. It was as if a gentle breeze had found its way into her heart, bringing with it a newfound warmth, patience, and an awakening of the senses. The world seemed to slow just a little, inviting Nina to pause, look closely, and listen to the poetry tucked away in each unfolding moment. No longer was Nina swept away by the rush of hurrying from one activity to the next. Instead, she began to see and feel the magic woven into the ordinary, transforming her daily life into a series of precious, meaningful instants. The very next morning, sunlight filtered through the windows, brushing golden stripes across the kitchen table as Nina sat down to have breakfast with her mother. In the past, mornings had meant leaping out of bed, grabbing her bread in hurried bites, and barely mumbling a greeting before dashing outside to greet the day. But today she paused, taking in the sights and smells that once passed her by unseen and unfelt. With gentle fingers, she picked up her bread, eyes drawn to each shining drop of melted butter sliding across the hot, crispy surface. The aroma curled up to meet her, filling Nina with comfort and calm. Closing her eyes, she breathed in deeply, and time seemed to stretch and soften around her. The bread, now more than simply food, was a warm embrace, the first gift of a day begun in gratitude. She nibbled slowly, savoring every bite, letting the taste melt across her tongue. Between bites, she offered her mother a gentle smile, her voice light and sincere. The bread is so delicious, Mom." In that instant, Her mother's eyes softened, touched by Nina's genuine happiness. She saw, perhaps for the first time, her daughter's face relaxed and glowing with joy, freed from the old worry of being late or missing out. There was something new and beautiful in this peaceful beginning, a connection, quiet and deep, growing between mother and daughter at the breakfast table. The simple act of eating bread together had transformed into an unexpected treasure. After breakfast, Nina set off for school with her satchel swinging at her side. Gone was the frantic dash down the street. Now her walk became a gentle journey. Each step opened her to the wonders that waited along the path. She stopped by the roadside, crouching to peer closely at a wildflower bold enough to bloom where few others dared. Its petals shimmered in the early light, and Nina bent down to inhale its fragile fragrance. The flower, so often overlooked, seemed to smile back, happy to be noticed and appreciated. As Nina continued, the breeze danced through the leaves above, whispering delicate secrets as it passed overhead. She listened, truly listened, to the gentle song of the wind and the chorus of birds, their melodies swirling together like a wordless lullaby. Their music was a gift from the world itself, a reminder that beauty and joy could be found in the simplest sounds. Raising her eyes, Nina watched the sky, a vast canvas painted in shades of blue. Puffy clouds drifted lazily, searching for adventure across the horizon. To Nina, they looked like friendly boats sailing on an endless, tranquil sea. She imagined riding along with them, free to explore and dream, embraced by the quiet magic of the morning. All around her, details leapt forward, more vivid and alive than ever before. The world, when she gave it her attention, overflowed with color, scent, and song, each moment a sparkling gem that she could choose to hold close. When the day at school ended and she returned home, Nina carried these moments like treasures in her pockets. Wanting to remember and honor each one, she found her favorite pen and a fresh sheet of paper. She decided she would draw a special clock, not one that counted hours and minutes, but one that measured what truly mattered, the joyful instants that filled her days. With a careful hand and a heart full of inspiration, Nina began to sketch. Instead of numbers and hands, her clock featured little pictures that captured her favorite moments. At the top, a bright sun shone for those warm, golden mornings when everything seemed possible. A hot loaf of bread took its place among the symbols, its steam curling up in memory of those delicious, slow breakfasts with her mother. She drew a musical note, floating smoothly in the middle, a tribute to the songs her mother often sang, weaving warmth and happiness into the air. In one corner nestled a curled-up cat, peaceful and content, representing those cherished times of quiet rest when Nina could simply breathe and be herself. Each of these symbols, simple as they were, told a story. They made up her memory clock, a clock that did not trap her with worries about being fast or slow, early or late. Instead, it honored each precious second as an opportunity for happiness, for calm, and for wonder. She held the drawing close, feeling proud and at peace. The memory clock was personal and unique, a gentle reminder that time could be measured not by how much she did or how fast she moved, but by the richness and sweetness of the moments that filled her heart. That evening, as twilight settled softly over their home, Nina's mother tucked her in and began to tell a bedtime story. The house, once buzzing with activity, now rested in quietude. Nina listened, feeling the story wrap around her like a cozy blanket, soothing her from the day's adventures. Before drifting off to sleep, Nina smiled to herself. For the first time, she realized that time was not her enemy. She didn't need to race against it, nor fear its passing. Instead, time could be a gentle, faithful friend, a companion that walked at her side, attentive and kind, always offering her the chance to find joy in the present moment. And with this newfound wisdom in her heart, Nina looked forward to each new day, ready to discover all the little moments that make life truly magical. Day by day, as the gentle light of morning swept across the quiet town of Loktak, Nina's life began to change in subtle, wonderful ways. No longer did she keep her treasured secret, the clock without numbers, the clock of memories, tucked quietly away in her own heart. Instead, she carried its spirit with her everywhere, sharing moments of slowing down and savoring time with everyone she cared about. Each day, this simple, magical idea took root and blossomed around her. At school, joy shone in Nina's eyes as she gathered her friends during recess. Where once they had dashed and darted across the playground, swept away in a rush of giggles and shouts, now Nina encouraged a different kind of adventure. She invited them to settle on the soft grass beneath the tangled arms of an old tree, to sit quietly and turn their attention beyond the usual noise. "Let's sit down here," Nina suggested, her voice as warm as the sunbeams dappling the ground. "Take a deep breath and listen to how the wind sings." At first, her friends blinked in surprise. The air felt strangely still compared to the frantic pace they were used to. But curiosity stirred in their hearts. One by one, they joined her, sitting side by side in a hushed circle. Together, they listened. The rustling leaves, tickled by the playful fingers of the wind, whispered secrets overhead. Birds chattered on the branches, each note bright and clear in the quiet. Someone giggled softly, delighted. "I can hear the wind telling a story," announced a little girl, her voice full of wonder. Another friend sighed, her shoulders relaxing, a peaceful expression blossoming across her face. "My heart feels lighter," she confessed, as if she had discovered a secret treasure hidden in the ordinary day. Their laughter sprinkled softly across the grass like raindrops on a summer day. And even in their quiet, the children felt something new, a gentle, golden connection growing between them. In those moments, every heartbeat became a thread tying them closer together, a shared memory spun with kindness and curiosity. At home, the changes wove themselves into Nina's family life as well. Her mother, once perpetually absorbed in her work, often lost track of time and missed the sweet joys of dinner or the bedtime stories they used to share. But now, inspired by her daughter's gentle wisdom, she began to slow down too. The evenings grew softer, filled with the rich aroma of home-cooked food and the melody of hushed voices. Meals were no longer hurried affairs. Instead, Nina and her mother lingered at the table, savoring each bite and every word. Her mother listened with intent curiosity as Nina shared the adventures of the school day. Sometimes, she would pause and smile at the soft thud of their cat leaping onto a chair, or listen as the hush of the night wind drifted in through the window. "My child, I feel lighter when I slow down like you," her mother whispered one night, gently reaching for Nina's hand. In that moment, they were wrapped in a warm cocoon of shared stories and simple gratitude, the outside world hushed away by the quiet happiness between them. Not only did the seeds of slowness and awareness grow at home, but they also took root in Nina's classroom. Her teacher, wise and watchful, noticed the subtle shift in Nina's friends. There was a new sense of calm, an undercurrent of contentment humming through the room each morning. Intrigued, the teacher introduced a gentle ritual. Each day, the class spent a few minutes sitting still together, closing their eyes, focusing on their breath. The children were encouraged to think of things they were grateful for: a friend's smile, the laughter at lunch, the smell of fresh pencils, the warmth of sunshine drifting through the windows. In those few quiet minutes, knowledge gained new meaning. The classroom became not only a place for learning facts, but also a sanctuary for learning how to live peacefully and joyfully. Gradually, even the bustling town of Loch Tach seemed to slow its relentless tempo. People started to pause in their daily routines. Instead of racing past each other, they would take a moment to exchange smiles or share a few kind words. Patience replaced hurry. Storekeepers lingered a little longer with a customer, listening to the stories brought in from the chilly street outside. Neighbors waited for one another at bus stops, conversations flowing more readily as clocks were left behind, no longer dictating every moment. Throughout the town, simple moments glimmered with new significance. A warm embrace between friends, a soft smile exchanged across a busy street, a single still minute spent gazing out a window at the shifting clouds. All these became small, cherished treasures tucked away in the hearts of the townspeople. Nina stood quietly at the center of this gentle revolution, the keeper of a simple truth: that slowing down and paying attention allows life's real magic to shine through. She watched as the seed she had planted began to bloom, sending out roots of kindness and calm that softened even the busiest days. Each morning, as Nina awoke and greeted the sun climbing over the rooftops, her smile stretched wide and bright, like a promise to every heart to look for joy in the slow and quiet places. In her eyes danced the happiness of 1,000 remembered moments, each one a sparkling bead on the necklace of her days. each one proof that when we slow down, we give the world and ourselves the space to breathe, to listen, and to love. And in the end, perhaps, that is when time truly smiles, when shared moments become memories, and every heart in Lochtach, no matter how small or busy, learns to find its own gentle rhythm. This is the gift Nina gives, carried quietly on the wind, inviting everyone to slow down, cherish the ordinary, and let their lives be filled with light. The gentle rhythm of days drifted across the little town of Lochtach, carrying with them the quiet changes of the seasons. Trees would shed their summer green for fire-hued leaves in autumn, only to don emerald once more by springtime's return. Through it all, nestled in the heart of the town, the shop known as Tender Time remained, a place that seemed to exist somehow outside the world's hurried pace. It was a sanctuary where time itself seemed to slow and soften, its edges blunted by kindness and a patient sense of wonder. But on a morning edged with gold and softened by memory, news spread softly, like the hush before dawn. Mr. Tam Cham, the gentle proprietor and cherished timekeeper of Tender Time, had quietly passed away. His life, marked by gentleness, humor, and his wise stewardship of moments, ended as naturally as the winding down of a well-loved clock. There was nothing dramatic about his passing. No clang of chimes, no outcry of sorrow or abrupt ending. Only a profound silence, a hush wherein echoes of his laughter and warmth lingered, mingling with the gentle tick of well-loved timepieces and the lingering aroma of wood and tea within the old shop. For the townsfolk of Lochtach, Mr. Tam Cham had always been more than a shopkeeper. He was a guide, a gentle reminder that amid the rush and tumble of days, there was a deeper current, a slower, more meaningful rhythm of life to be felt and cherished. And now that he was gone, his absence settled into the town like the softest of blankets, wrapping every soul with memories and a sweet, enduring gratitude. To Nina, the loss was especially poignant. She had grown up within Tender Time, first as a curious child perched at Mr. Tam Cham's elbow, then as a young woman filled with dreams and understandings that only quiet observation and shared silences can teach. Now grown, her eyes reflected a depth of compassion and wisdom that seemed rare in someone so young. The world, with all its ceaseless urgency and expectation, sometimes failed to notice such things. But in Lochtach, and especially in Tender Time, the quiet virtues were treasured. On the day she returned to the shop, after it had closed its doors for the gentle mourning of its keeper, Nina allowed herself a moment of remembrance. She settled onto the familiar worn wooden chair, the one whose back had held generations of gentle souls. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood, old books, and the secrets whispered by clocks. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting the memories unfurl, the fragments of laughter, the rhythm of Mr. Tam Cham's footsteps, the patient explanations of the clocks with no numbers. But this was not just mourning, it was a beginning. The spirit that lingered in the shop was not one of lingering loss, but of quiet continuity, of legacy passed from one pair of gentle hands to another. Nina understood then, in the stillness, that the gift Mr. Tam Cham had given her was not to keep the clocks running, but to preserve and share the true spirit of slow time. Slow time, she realized, as she traced her fingers along the grain of the counter, was not simply the absence of haste. It was not the negation of ambition or the surrender to idleness. Rather, it was the art of being wholly present to life's moments, of living not on the surface but in the depths. It was knowing when to pause amid the chaos, to take a long, deep breath, to listen to the steady beat of your heart and remember that you are alive here and now. With a profound sense of purpose, Nina began to open the shop again. She dusted and polished, tended to the clocks, but most importantly, she opened the doors wide to all who sought solace from the relentless march of hours. Gradually, new faces appeared, travelers, townspeople grown weary, children with wide eyes and busy mothers with tired ones, all drawn by the whisper of a gentler way to mark the passing hours. To each visitor, Nina offered more than tea and small talk. She told them the stories that had become the heartbeat of Tender Time, of Mr. Tam Cham and his unwavering belief in the beauty of living slowly, of the mysterious clock that had no numbers and yet kept perfect track of memories, of the memory clock itself, a symbol and reminder that every person carries within themselves the power to create their most precious personal moments. Let your own heartbeat be your guide, she'd say gently. Listen for it. In the silence, in between your thoughts and the world's noise, you'll find the true rhythm of your life. Visitors left with lighter hearts, often pausing on the threshold as though reluctant to rejoin the world's relentless race. Some, inspired by the peace they found inside, became regulars. Others carried the lesson back to their own families, transforming quiet moments into cherished rituals. Under Nina's care, Loktak blossomed into a haven where time no longer bullied or hurried. Here, time became a gracious companion, a friend rather than a foe. People greeted each other with more patience, more attention. They lingered on porches in the evening, watched the changing sky, took walks with no destination in mind. Birthdays were toasted not with wishes for speed and achievement, but with prayers for deeper joy and the wisdom to cherish whatever moments came their way. When the bell of the old clock in tender time chimed, never rushing, never loud, it seemed to carry a soft message throughout the town. It reminded everyone of Mr. Tam Cham, the gentle man who had shown them that living slowly was not about surrendering to inaction, but about awakening to fullness. Living truly, loving deeply, and stepping forward into each new day with an open, grateful heart. As the seasons shifted and the years threaded onward, the tradition deepened. And there, in the golden quiet of late afternoon, Nina would often find herself standing by the shop's wide front window, watching the world stroll by. Sometimes she closed her eyes, listening to the melody of footsteps, the tick of the clocks, the gentle hum of conversation. She would smile to herself, knowing that the real slow clock, that lesson of gentleness, presence, and love, would never leave. It ticked within every soul who had loved and learned beneath its roof. It beat quietly, eternally, in her own heart, a reminder that true time is measured not in minutes or hours, but in the fullness of each lived, cherished moment. Thank you everyone for your interest. Please like and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications of more stories.